Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Briar-Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance, there's nobody better in the business to work with than the good people over at Briar-Greaves Insurance. For more information, visit briargreavesinsurance.com or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. It is a Monday edition of the Pewter Report podcast, and we are going to get a bit nostalgic today, talking about the top 50 Bucs of all time. There's been a great article series by PR's own Scott Reynolds going through the top 50 Bucs, and we're going to whittle it all down on today's show, talk about some current news as well. So hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Let's get it rocking and rolling this afternoon. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is SR, Scott Reynolds. Hello, Scott. How we doing? I think you're muted.
There we go. How are we doing?
Hey.
Okay. All right. We are excited for Bucs training camp to begin. And I think I speak for everybody at Pewter Report, where this has the opportunity to be a special season, a super season maybe. We all predicted a 10-7 record last year, first time in Pewter Report history. And guess what? We all were right. We all hit on 10-7. None of us projected the Buccaneers to make the Super Bowl. I don't know that we necessarily thought they would lose in the first round at home to the Commanders in the wild card round, but that season kind of went according to plan from a record guessing standpoint. We always put our records out there for public consumption at the end of training camp, because who knows what's going to happen in terms of breakout players, injuries, etc. So please allow us a month or so to look at the Bucs in preseason and make our best guesses and draw some conclusions. But, Matt, if this team did go to the Super Bowl this year, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying it's going to happen just yet. But if this team went to the Super Bowl this year with this roster, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, they have Super Bowl level talent on this roster. I don't know if they're going to make it this year. I actually think next year would be my prediction for the Bucs to go and make the Super Bowl. I picked my Super Bowl teams yesterday. I'll talk about it at some point, during the podcast, during the season. But the Bucs certainly have a great shot at going deep into the postseason. Again, not many teams can say that they brought back all 11 starters the offensive side of the football, plus drafted another wide receiver in that first round to really, help boost any minor weakness that this team may have, or with having players out. That's a little bit of the obstacle that Tampa Bay has going into this season with Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin. But this team is way too talented to fail. I think they should be able to run away with the NFC South. And, once you get into the dance, we'll see what happens. But anything less than the division title, I think, would be a big-time disappointment for the Bucs.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's fine to raise expectations this year, especially after what happened last year. Just a couple of newsworthy things to talk about, and then we'll dive into today's topic, which is the top 50 Buccaneers of all time. I put an article up on Pewter Report today, kind of summarizing that. In case you don't want to read all 10 articles, I did y'all a favor. I put all of them in kind of short little snippets rather than the entire write-up for each particular player. It's a much more condensed version of that. I'll drop it in the chat here so y'all can read it at your leisure, maybe follow along in the show. We're going to have all 50 players to talk about today. But as expected, Benjamin Morrison signed with the Buccaneers, and now the Buccaneers have everybody under contract that they need under contract right now. And the second-round pick got most of his third year guaranteed. He's a second-round pick, so that's the new thing in the second round. These agents are trying to get all of their contract, all 4 years of their contracts guaranteed. With Morrison, it's the first 2 years and like 95% of his third year.
96% of his third year is guaranteed. And that was a big storyline, not just with the Bucs and Benjamin Morrison, but really every team across the league, is this ongoing negotiations with second round picks. Because it was very odd, like going into the weekend, I think like 30 teams did not have their second round pick signed. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals didn't even have their first round pick signed. at the time. And I'm always for, even though none of these guys have proved it at the NFL level, this is all based on what they did in college, but I'm all for NFL players getting their money as quickly as they can and as much as they can, because it is kind of crazy. Like, quarterback money aside, it is crazy. Like, if you look at the NBA, the 10th man off the bench is like making more money than a top 7 wide receiver in the league, or whatever the case may be. And it's all guaranteed as soon as you sign the contract, where the NFL, it's all about the guaranteed money, because if you only have 3 years guaranteed, and then say you signed a 5-year deal, they could just cut you after the 4th year and you get none of that money. So at times I do feel bad for the players in terms of, like, just the amount of eyeballs that are on football, and everyone says football is king. They took over Christmas. They're always the top 100 viewed ratings in with everything. It's all like football games, and then maybe like game 7 of whatever other championship is going on. So I'm all for it, and good for Benjamin Morrison. I think there's going to be a lot of great stuff happening with him, hopefully this year, but certainly in his career in Tampa.
Yeah, and it's only going to be a matter of time before the 3rd-round picks are going to want their guaranteed money as well. I think the guys that honestly get screwed are hockey players. I mean, I love football. It's my number one sport. I love football. I'm actually like a Johnny come lately to hockey. I've been a fan for 10 years or so. Not the Lightning's first Stanley Cup, but when they started to ramp up for their 2nd run with the back-to-back titles, I really became a Lightning fan. And I'm sorry, when you're skating at full speed, getting hit, getting checked into the boards, playing 82 games?
82 games, yeah.
You know, and they're and you see these guys like signed a 3-year deal averaging $2 million. I'm like, what? Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
It is such a rough sport, and that I always love. Well, I don't love it, but it's very interesting to see. Like at the end of the Lightning season, they kind of like reveal, so-and-so is playing with a torn rotator for the last 17 games.
Wrist, broken collarbone, torn ACL, and
meniscus injury.
Still managed 35 minutes of ice time per game.
Yeah,
whatever the case may be. That's a good point. It feels like hockey is the last sport of players like truly playing it for the love of the game, and it's got all the physicality of football, but you play every other night, sometimes 2 nights in a row, and a ton more games, and then playoff hockey is on another level. So go Bolts. Hopefully they have a great year this year, and hopefully the Bucs do too. And now that they got everybody rocking and rolling, and of course training camp is coming up on Wednesday, Scott. So we are very, very close to finally seeing the Bucs as an entire team, as a whole unit.
That's right.
Hitting the field and starting up this 2025 season.
Some programming notes. We usually do a podcast in the off season on Tuesdays. That's not going to be the case tomorrow. We're going to be taking the day off from the pod to get prepared for training camp, which starts on Wednesday. And so at 4:00, we will be having our Wednesday podcast right fresh from One Buccaneer Place, watching the first practice. The Bucs don't get into pads until next week, so it's basically like OTAs again in the mini camp environment once again for the first couple of practices. But there are practices on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm sorry, take that back. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We will have podcasts this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So those are going to be the days we'll have podcasts this week. And then next week, that's when the pads start, and we'll have a different schedule for that as well. There's a Tuesday night practice that we won't have a podcast on that particular Tuesday. We'll have the recap from that on Wednesday. So again, no podcast tomorrow and no podcast the next Tuesday, because the Bucs practice from 7 to 9 at night. So that'll be a little late to have a post-practice primetime podcast. We'll just do that podcast on Wednesday. So just some programming notes there. Other interesting things, we have Josh Grizzard and Larry Foote scheduled to come on probably the second week of Bucs training camp. So keep an eye on those dates. We're working that out with the team right now. We can tell you on August 4th, Tony Dungy will be our special guest. That's Monday, August 4th. Former Bucs coach, Hall of Famer Tony Dungy will be joining us to talk some Bucs football from yesteryear, as well as previewing the 2025 Todd Bowles led Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's a big Todd Bowles fan. And as you can see, he works for NBC Sports, so very knowledgeable about the game from its history to its present day. And we'll be looking forward to catching up with Coach there. I can also tell you that I am going to be meeting with John Gruden tomorrow, and we're going to be working on getting him on the podcast as well. So we had Todd Bowles earlier. We will get Tony Dungy and hopefully John Gruden, and we might even get Raheem Morris again from Falcons camp to get an update on the Bucs arch nemesis just up the road there, up 75. So lots going on with the Pewter Report podcast. In about 6 minutes, we're going to have roll call because it's a Monday. So I've got a rant. Matt will be putting up the names of our viewers and listeners as we go on about that. We have a couple of new features coming up on pewterreport.com. I want to tell you about. Had a great conversation today with Payne Durham, the Bucs' second string tight end. He's a great interview. We're going to have him on the podcast, and he's an absolute dynamite interview. So you will find his training camp diaries, which will begin. We'll do his on Wednesday morning while the Bucs are in training camp. We'll have his go on Wednesday, and he was phenomenal. Great interview. Really looking forward to presenting those training camp diaries to you guys. They really get some insight on what it's like to block Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby for him, what it's like to catch touchdowns finally after waiting just about 2 full years. He had touchdowns in back-to-back games against the Panthers and Saints to end the regular season. And as you know, if you've been following our training camp diaries, we do one player on offense and one player on defense to give you different perspectives. Then we give you one rookie and one veteran to give you different perspectives from different lenses of this player. So we have an offensive veteran. Well, we've got a defensive rookie, and that is pass rusher phenom David Walker. And I've conducted an interview with him that'll be appearing on pewterreport.com tomorrow as well. These are exclusive to the website, so make sure you check out pewterreport.com for the training camp diaries of David Walker, who should be getting plenty of playing time this preseason, as well as Payne Durham.
Yeah, very excited for both of them. I knew Payne Durham was going to be a hit. Just seeing him, some of the interviews he's done, some of the video clips that the Bucs have done, I knew he was going to be a fantastic interview. So very excited for that to come out. And I think it's two unique perspectives. You know, David Walker coming from a small school, gets propped up into this outside linebacker room that brings in the legend of Hassan Reddick, and can Hassan Reddick recapture how great he was? What type of mentor will Hassan Reddick be to David Walker? Of course, how David Walker's going through everything, learning this Todd Bowles defense, what Yaya Diaby is like from an outside perspective as well. And then Payne Durham has been here for a while, knows the tight end room pretty well, has worked with Baker Mayfield, and is certainly trying to, carve out a role for himself in this offense too. I know it's a lot of Kate Otten driven type of ways with the tight ends, but who knows? Payne Durham and I think Devin Culp will also certainly be pushing to get themselves on the field more. And like we talked about on previous shows, with the absence of Tristan Wirfs for the beginning of the season, there might be that opportunity for a couple of other tight ends to see the field just a little bit more.
No doubt about it. And I talked to Payne about that, and he was pretty excited about the opportunity, not at the expense of Tristan Wirfs. Sure. I mean, he loves Tristan. But he had some great things to say about Charlie Heck. That's going to be in the first installment on Wednesday, so make sure you check that out. But the other thing that he said was he was the most vocal, Payne was, when it came to giving Liam Cohen grief in practice. He would always shout out during practice, we're a 12 team, we're a 13 team, which means 12 personnel, double tight ends, 13 personnel, which is 3 tight ends. And I asked him about when the Buccaneers in that Panthers game in week 17 went 4 verticals out of 13 personnel with Devin Culp, Payne Durham, and Co Kieft, because Kate Ott was out that game.
Yeah.
And he said that was like a dream come true that they got to 13 personnel and they ran 4 verts with 3 tight ends, and then you had Jalen McMillan coming out of the backfield. He lined up in the backfield as a running back and ran down the seam. So he really appreciated Liam Cohen, as he said, having the balls to call that. And as you might know, Payne Durham had a big time catch almost down to the goal line. I think it was like inside the 5-yard line. But then he finally got his first NFL touchdown in that game. So a lot of good stuff coming from these Bucs tight ends. And yeah, he kind of sensed the same thing too. He expects for the first couple of games of that Tristan Wirfs, they're going to go back to some of that 2 tight end sets to help Charlie Heck out on that side. That's exactly what they did when Tristan Wirfs was injured in that first game against the San Francisco 49ers in week 9, and then missed the second game, which was after the bye week against the New York Giants. The Bucs went a lot more 12 personnel, a lot more Payne Durham, and they ran the ball exceptionally well against the Giants with Bucky Irving in that game, and then certainly protected well for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and this isn't even a diss or anything to Charlie Heck, but we're talking about Charlie Heck being the weakest link because Tristan Wirfs is so damn good. And on top of that, this offensive line for the Bucs is a really good group too, whether it's Graham Barton going into year 2, the steps that Luke Gedeke, a right tackle that we've talked about in his career. Same thing with Cody Mauk, really playing at a Pro Bowl level, especially towards the end of last season. And of course, Ben Bredesen played well enough to get a new contract from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it makes total sense that they would try to, cover as many things as possible and protect and take care of, again, the weak link. I'm not saying that Charlie Heck is a bad player, but he is the weak link of this offensive line. So if that means Payne Durham has to come in and, help block a little bit more, or Kate Otten stays in a little bit more to block and to help, and we get some chips from Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, so be it. The Bucs and Josh Grizzard, even though it's his first time calling plays for the Bucs as the offensive coordinator, as long as they protect one side with Charlie Heck, they'll be able to figure out everything else. Doesn't matter if it's a pass going to Mike Evans or Mecca Ibuka or Jalen McMillan, or when Chris Godwin comes back. There's too much talent to be derailed by not having Tristan Wirfs for a little bit, but it can be derailed if Baker Mayfield doesn't have time to throw and the run game doesn't open up. So, why not help Charlie Heck as much as they possibly can? If that means 12 personnel, well, we know a couple of people that'll be excited about it.
Exactly. Just like we have people that get excited about when we do roll call on Mondays. That's something we do at 4:20 on most Mondays when we don't have a guest. And today's one of those days where we don't have a guest, Matt. So let's get on to it. I've got a bit of a rant today. And if you want to help by recognizing some of our Buccaneer fans, by putting them on the screen, let's do that. But it is time for a fun thing we did with all the Buccaneer fans called
Roll Call. Yep, that's right. As Scott was just saying, we love interacting with our fans as much as we possibly can, especially because while we have great fans in Tampa, understandably, it is the Bucs. They play in Tampa Bay. We have awesome fans all across the world, both in the United States and internationally as well. So one way we love interacting with everybody is through these roll call rants on Monday, while Scott goes on his conversation about the Bucs. If you want to start putting in the chat where you were watching the show from, like Nathan Elliott in Bradenton, Florida, we will put it up on the screen and then give a couple of specific shout outs after. So Scott, whenever you're ready, please take the floor.
Yeah, so today I'm going to be talking about quarterbacks on the top 50 list, and we're going to explain some things before we get into our top 50. So let's just talk about the quarterback position, right? You may have heard of this guy, Tom Brady. He's pretty good. Won a Super Bowl in Tampa. In his first year, was the GOAT, rewrote the Bucs record book in terms of passing yardage. Got this team 13 wins, and which is a franchise record in 2021, and also set the single season franchise record for touchdown passes with 43. Ranked number 11th, just outside the top 10. And I know I've gotten some flack from some Buccaneer fans saying, wait a minute, Tom Brady deserves to be in the top 5, right? In terms of Buccaneer legends and all of that. I think the thing that kind of hurts Brady from not being inside the top 5 or even really inside the top 10 is just, first of all, there's Hall of Famers and legends that we have to account for, right? And I think the other issue is that Brady had 2 really good seasons. The first season in Tampa Bay in 2020, 4,633 yards, 40 touchdowns. The next year, a franchise record, 5,316 yards, 43 touchdowns. We all know what happened the next year. It wasn't good. Tom Brady got divorced. This team finished 8-9. And I think one more really good year from Tom Brady, and he's was certainly in the top 10. But really, when you look at Tom Brady's time in Tampa, to be number 11 and only have 2 really good years is pretty remarkable, right? So that's why he's there. The next quarterback on the list, this generated some controversy, Baker Mayfield, right? He is a gamer. He is the heartbeat of this offense, and he's ranked number 17 on this list. So he's inside the top 20, not too far away from Tom Brady. But again, why is maybe Baker Mayfield ranked this high when he's only won one playoff game and only played in Tampa Bay for 2 years? Well, he's done a couple of things. He's led this team to back-to-back NFC South titles, both of which have winning records, including 10 wins last year. And what kind of enamors me about Mayfield is, and this is maybe just a little bit of a projection, but one more fantastic year from Brady, from Mayfield, and he's going to be inching closer to Brady. If he gets a Super Bowl championship during his time in Tampa, Matt, you could make the argument that Baker Mayfield will actually be the best quarterback of all time. Now, he's got to do it. He's got to win that Super Bowl. But the fact that Brady really was only here for 3 years, really delivered only 2 years, there's a chance, there's a path for Baker Mayfield becoming the best quarterback in Bucs history. I think right now, why is he ranked over Brad Johnson, who's ranked number 27th on our list when Brad Johnson has won a Super Bowl? I think it's two different playing styles. The Bucs defense in 2002 was so dominant in Super Bowl 37. They almost scored as many touchdowns as the offense did, right? The offense, out of the 48 points, scored 27 points. The defense scored 21, okay? So that was a defensive-laden team. And you look at Brad Johnson, not taking anything away from the Bull, absolutely love him, but he was more of that field general. He was more of the point guard distributing the ball to Keyshawn Johnson, Keenan McCardle, Joe Jurevicius, Michael Pittman, Mike Allstott out of the backfield, Ken Dilker, Ricky Dudley. Whereas Baker Mayfield, he's the engine of the offense. He is the heartbeat of this team. And so to me, I think that is what separates Baker a little bit from Brad Johnson is the offense goes through Baker. This is a passing attack where he is the shooting guard rather than the point guard. He is the Michael Jordan, essentially, the guy that's going to be putting the points up. And then the last quarterback in our top 50 is Doug Williams. And so we've had quarterbacks at 11, 17, 27, and Doug Williams comes in at 37. And I know there's some old-time fans that say, well, Doug Williams, was the original Bucs Ring of Honor, member with Leroy Selman and all of that, and helped bring this team to prominence in 1979. He completed 47% of his passes. He won as many games as he lost. And when you look at what he's done from a leadership and a passing game standpoint, it just doesn't stack up with some of the more modern day quarterbacks because the passing game has become more prolific. And so still deserves his place in the top 50. Matt, 20 years ago, Doug Williams would be higher. Since then, we've had Brad Johnson and Baker Mayfield and certainly Tom Brady. And so that's why the quarterbacks are kind of ranked where they are. You might take issue with that. I understand that. You might take umbrage with it. That's fine. This is an opinion piece, not necessarily fact. The Buccaneers will be putting out their top 50. They took my ballot as well as a lot of ballots from current media people, former media people that covered this team for so many years, and they'll be releasing that at some point in time. But this was my ballot. I kind of got the input from our Pewter reporters and put it together. And so all the names that you're going to see on today's show, all the names you've read on our stories, this is kind of like Pewter Report's list that I put together that we all kind of agreed on and voted on. So that's where the quarterbacks rank.
Yeah, it's all about embracing debate, right? That's what this time of the year is for, and that's why we can't wait for Wednesday as well when we can finally talk about real and live football. But I think all of the quarterback rankings are fair, and to me, it's always tough to compare quarterbacks from different eras because just the style of offenses were different. Even you look at different positions, but like running backs were much more important back then than they are now. So it's always difficult kind of balancing that. I do think there is a degree of importance with how long that they played for a team as well, which, again, with Brady, everybody's going to remember Tom Brady as a New England Patriot, unless you are from Tampa and are a Bucs fan, then you'll remember him as a Buck. There are people that probably remember Tony Dungy, or definitely remember Tony Dungy more with the Colts.
That's right.
And Doug Williams with Washington than they do, with Tampa and their time in Tampa. And Brad Johnson's an interesting case as well, because I feel like him and ironically former Buccaneer Trent Dilfer, they kind of get regarded as the game manager quarterback on Super Bowl winning teams with great defense. Of course, Brad Johnson, it was the Bucs. With Trent Dilfer, it was that Ravens team that won a Super Bowl in Tampa with Ray Lewis, Tony Saragusa, RIP, and a lot of other great players as well. And
I was there for that game.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think Brad Johnson was as much of a game manager as like everyone kind of alludes to as well, but he's certainly not up there with Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield, in my opinion. And I agree with you. If Baker finds a way to win a Super Bowl with this team, adds another division title, maybe even gets to 13 wins at some point in his career with Tampa Bay, which would tie the franchise record for wins in a season, he will be the greatest Bucs quarterback of all time. I mean, the only thing Brady will have right now is the single season passing records, and Brady is still up there with the all-time. But the more Baker plays here, the more he's going to move up those records and eventually surpass Jameis. If he can get one of those single season records, then I think there's no doubt about it that Baker will be number one. And of course, he's embraced Tampa a lot more than Brady has. Not that Tom Brady didn't try to, but it was different times, and he's a mega star where, Baker's like slugging beers with players, with fans and stuff like at a Rays game, and then, attending charity events and all of this different stuff. It's just, again, a different time. And then when it's all said and done, Baker can look at the Bucs and say the Bucs are his team because, the Browns were the one that traded him and kicked him out the door. Same with the Panthers and the Rams too. But the Bucs are Baker's team, where for Brady, they're always the second team.
Yeah, for sure. I will say it's pretty cool though that Tom Brady hit free agency one time and he picked one team, and it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
No doubt about it.
It's pretty cool. It's one thing for the Patriots to draft him and then keep re-signing him, but he got to choose where he wanted to go, and he did that once and picked the Buccaneers. So that's pretty cool. Just like it's pretty cool when you get to go to walk-ons on Monday, and from 3 p.m. to close, it's happy hour. You can eat like a winner, drink like a champ at 3 Tampa Bay area walk-ons, Wesley Chapel, Midtown Tampa, down there by the stadium, and Lakeland. They've got a tremendous happy hour menu, and I'll get to that in a second. But if you can't make it to walk-ons today, make sure you go there tomorrow, because from all day, it's happy hour. And you get $5 Tito's on Tuesdays as well. So it's fantastic. $3.99 domestic pints, $5 premium house pours or house happy hour wines, $5.49 22-ounce domestic drafts, $4 to get you the hush puppies or the onion rings, $7 for the boom boom shrimp, a half order of waffle cheese fries, or the spinach and artichoke dip, which is one of my absolute favorites. $8, you can make a meal out of this, folks. Boneless wings or cheeseburger sliders. So make sure you're getting to walk-ons. Great place to go for sports. I know there's not a lot of sports on right now, but football is getting ready to get revved up, and it will be your go-to place for college and pro football during football season. If you haven't been to walk-ons, make this week the week you do it. You're going to love the menu. They've revamped it. They've got some great dishes, and it's a fantastic place to go to watch the game. TVs galore, and fantastic food and drinks at fantastic prices too.
Love walk-ons. So many great food options. Gigantic drink selection as well. I love going to watch games there. I was actually just saying to my friend yesterday, like, I just can't wait for football so much. I'm very excited for training camp on Wednesday. I love that there is a football game taking place later this month. The Hall of Fame game is going on. I can't wait for college football. Your Kansas State Wildcats are going to Ireland playing Iowa State. That's like week 0.
Yep.
I'm telling everybody, that first week in college football, August 30th, like that Labor Day weekend,
it's a blast.
12 o'clock game, Texas against Ohio State, then Florida State against Bama. You got Clemson against LSU. I cannot wait for that Saturday when we truly, really fully get football, and then the Bucs will be playing a week later. So, watch all the football you can over at Walk-Ons. I'm
with you, man. Let's talk some Buccaneer all-time players, and let's start with the first group here. This is the all-time Bucs, and the names, we're just going to read them off here for the audio folks, and we'll talk about some of the ones that stick out here. We're going to go from reverse order. So number 50, the best punt returner And one of the most reliable players, wide receivers, kind of a third option, number 3 receiver for a lot of his career, Carl the Truth Williams. Doug Martin was a 2-time Pro Bowl back. He's number 49. 48, Chidi Hanatu on that Monty Kiffin Tampa 2 defense in the the late 90s, early 2000s. The legendary and late David Logan, defensive tackle, comes in at 47. Number 46 is tight end Cam Brate, one of the underrated red zone weapons that helped the Bucs win the Super Bowl. Number 45, kicker Martin Automatica Grammatica. Number 44, wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson, helped the Bucs win Super Bowl, and then had it out with John Gruden the next year, got suspended from the team. Number 43, Mike Washington. Really, Rondé Barber before Rondé Barber. Big-time playmaking cornerback for the Buccaneers in their early years. And then left tackle Donald Penna, stalwart at that left tackle spot. Very underrated guy, made a Pro Bowl in Tampa. And kicker Chase Money McLaughlin. You know, Matt, one more season, and I think Money McLaughlin passes Ryan Suckup, who's just a couple spots ahead of him as the best kicker in Bucs history. Let's talk about some of these names.
Yeah, for sure. The couple of names, especially on the right side that come out first. Doug Martin, what an interesting career. Like 2 huge moments, 2 seasons really. And then never really kind of lived up to the billing, had the funny nickname, the Muscle Hamster, which he didn't like, but people called him that. That crazy game against the Raiders, that certainly stands out to me. Cam Brate, just such a fun media guy, you know, always great with answering questions, was super funny. And then one of the guys, too, that's just like a true blue Buck. I know the Bucs are red, and I know he briefly spent time with the Saints, like on the practice squad, but he's just one of those guys that, you know, when I think of Mike Evans specifically and Levante David, I'm so happy that they found success in their career and won a championship. They went through a lot of crap early on with bad teams and losing teams. And to me, Cam Brate was, again, one of those shining stars on what was really a bad football team for quite a while. And then the presence that he made, you know, as a red zone tight end was super important. And then still important when Gronk ended up coming to this team as well. You thought Cam Brate would get overshadowed, but he had a very important touchdown in that NFC Championship game. Keyshawn Johnson, I obviously knew pretty well from when he played with the Jets. To me, I found him so interesting when he just went over to Tampa Bay, because it seemed like you would know better, but it seemed like they really needed like that true number 1 wide receiver at the time. It felt like Keyshawn Johnson really gave them that answer that they had been looking for quite a while at that point.
Yeah, and it really kind of caused some fireworks in the Bucs locker room, because he and Warren Sapp did not like each other. So that was a very interesting locker room to cover. A lot of personalities in there. He threw Simeon Rice into the mix. Brad Culpepper was there a little earlier. He wasn't on the Super Bowl team, but yeah, there was a cast of characters in that locker room. Keyshawn was definitely one of those. Speaking of receivers, number 40, wide receiver Joey Galloway, speed merchant, checks inside the top 40. Ryan Suckup, best Bucs kicker of all time, set the single season franchise record for points scored, as well as helped the Bucs win a Super Bowl, and really was that missing link when the Bucs went through so many kickers for about a decade. They finally settled on Suckup, who was brought stability there to the position. Cedric Brown, a playmaking safety from yesteryear. Doug Williams, who we talked about, the Bucs' first franchise quarterback. Vincent Jackson checks in at 36. Big playmaker, class act off the field, great leader. If you ask Mike Evans, that was his mentor when he first got to Tampa, and you're not going to find a better example to follow than Vincent Jackson if you're Mike Evans. Number 35 is tight end Rob Gronkowski, who had 2 fantastic seasons, was Tom Brady's go-to guy in so many situations. 2 touchdowns on the first half to get the Bucs out to a 14-0 lead over Kansas City in the Super Bowl is what he'll always be remembered for. And then Mark Carrier and Kevin House check in at 33 and 34 too. Receivers, Kevin House was really the Bucs' first deep threat. Joey Galloway before Galloway, with Doug Williams throwing him the ball. Mark Carrier had Vinny Testaverde slinging him the rock, and he was really the best and most prolific receiver before Mike Evans. So he kind of helped set the tone at wide receiver for this franchise into the 80s. DeMar Dotson, one of the best stories of all time, right tackle, who was an undrafted free agent. He was a tryout player. When he showed up, the team didn't have cleats, as big as he needed. So he actually practiced during the rookie mini camp, during the tryout period. He was a tryout player in cleats that were 3 sizes too small. I want to say he was like a size 17 and he had to practice in size 14. So like I wore size like 11 and a half, right? Like that would be trying to fit into like an 8.5 and walk around and all that, much less play football. But 10 years essentially at right tackle. And then another right tackle who's the arrow is pointing up for this guy, Matt. He's got Pro Bowls in the future, and he's got a big contract extension coming up. Luke Edeke at number 31.
Yeah, he's definitely got a big contract in his future. So happy for Luke Edeke, the way that he was able to overcome adversity where everyone was ready to run him out of town after a tough rookie season where he played guard, but then moved to the outside. He's got this great relationship with Tristan Wirfs and the rest of the offensive linemen. I think he brings a little bit of a psycho attitude, but I mean that in a good way, in a positive way. And, he will do anything to protect and back up his teammates, and especially Baker Mayfield. And I don't mean protect just as in pass blocking and run blocking, but legit. Anytime there's a late hit, a little bit of an extra push on Baker Mayfield, Luke Edeke is usually the first guy in your face, really having to say something. And I believe Jason Light also said that he would take Luke Edeke to back him up in a fight because of the craziness factor. So I like that from Luke Edeke. DeMar Dawson as well.
One of the best locker room guys. One of the best quotes.
Locker room guys. One of the first times when I was producing the podcast, he was one of the first guests that I was proud that he was on the Pewter Report podcast, but I was like producing for that. So it was cool, like getting to talk to him then, getting to know him more. There's part of me that feels bad because his last year with the Bucs was 2019, and he was there for a lot of the tough times, but didn't get to enjoy that Super Bowl ring the same way. He wasn't on the team the same way that obviously Mike and Levante did. So I don't know. I always think about that a little bit with DeMar Dawson. Obviously it wasn't really his choice, but not being able to win that championship with the Bucs. Vincent Jackson, I think, again, sad that he's no longer with us, and I think his impact on Mike Evans was so important. And I feel like we can't talk about the overall career of Mike Evans, especially the early years, without giving a nod to Vincent Jackson. Doug Williams, we talked about before, his importance with the team. And, man, Ryan Succop, I think people forget about how much of an issue finding a kicker was for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
For him to be so accurate and to do great things, perform so well for this team, especially in that Super Bowl winning season. I'm glad that he's on this list because there was issues at kicker for a very long time with this team. And now finally Succop got it the right way, and Money McLaughlin then took the torch from him and is now arguably the best kicker, really the best kicker the Bucs have ever had.
Yeah, I love big wide receivers. When I was a kid, Harold Carmichael from the Eagles was a giant, 6'7", right? And for a minute you had 6'5" Mike Evans and 6'5" Vincent Jackson. Look how big Mike was then.
Yeah.
He was heavy. He was about 235, 240. Now he's slimmed down. He's faster. I mean, I just looked at Mike's stats the other day. He's averaged 15.4 yards per catch over his career. Yeah. Like, that's astonishing. That for a big man like that, that's crazy. But that's where it all started right there, folks. Mike Evans getting tutored by Vincent Jackson. So let's continue on into our next list here. And this is the top 30 here from 11 to 30. I'll read these names and we'll go through the first list here. Davin Joseph, the guard, checks in at number 30. Warwick Dunn, number 29, the running back. Linebacker Shelton Quarles at 28. 27 is Brad Johnson, the quarterback. Center Tony Mayberry at 26. And then center Ryan Jensen at 25. Guard Ali Marpet at 24. A little bit of a run of offensive linemen there. And then outside linebacker Jason Pierre-Paul, JPP. 22nd is defensive tackle Gerald McCoy. And then 21 is the guy that just can't get in the Bucs Ring of Honor, even though he deserves it, running back James Wilder. Really the Bucs' first weapon on offense.
Yeah, James Wilder, what he did as a runner, but both as a pass catcher as well, as a receiving running back, was truly ahead of his time at the running back position, but such a talented guy. And one of the first great representations of the early days Buccaneers in the creamsicle uniforms and the throwback uniforms that we're all
Look at
going
those
to
shoulder
see.
pads, man. Those
Yeah.
are some shoulder pads right there. I love that. I want to see big shoulder pads again. Bring that back. Bring back that and neck rolls, man.
Yeah, the neck rolls, especially on
Yeah.
linebackers, is
Yes.
one of the coolest things. I love seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe just get it for Sean Tucker if it's going to be 3rd and 1. Like, all right, Sean, put
Right.
on the big boy shoulder pads. As you mentioned,
Exactly.
a big run on offensive linemen. I think Ali Marpet would have been lower on the list, like maybe even in the top 20 had he played a little bit
Yeah.
more. But
Oh, for sure.
he
Yeah.
retired where he wants to retire. And then JPP as well, a guy that, again, I think helped turn the wheels into getting the Bucs in the proper direction that they wanted to be when he came through a couple of seasons before the Super Bowl. Obviously, they did win a Super Bowl, but I think JPP kind of leading in the way that he was able to lead. And then obviously they got better on offense and added some pieces on defense. I think he was very important in the turnaround of the Bucs as well. And, that's why you see him that high on the list.
Yeah. And then we'll take a look at, here we go. Take a look at the next 10 players. And this is from 11 to 20. We're going to start back at number 20 with safety Antoine Winfield Jr., defensive tackle Vita Vea comes in at number 19. Number 18, the Iceman, Donnie Abraham. Cornerback, second best cornerback in Bucs history. Quarterback Baker Mayfield at 17. Number 16 is Hardy Nickerson, El Dragon, otherwise known as Hardware. One of my absolute favorite players. Just a player that brought some badassery. That's a word I love to use to the Buccaneers, and when they needed it. He was a guy that was really a huge free agent signing from Pittsburgh and was really the kind of the catalyst for this defense. Really was the leader of the pack, and then kind of handed the baton to Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, and John Lynch once he kind of helped usher them into Buccaneer football. Number 15, Shaq Barrett, Shaq Attack. Number 14, the best offensive lineman in Bucs history, not named Tristan Wirfs, right? And left tackle, Bucs Ring of Honor member, didn't make a single Pro Bowl because he played in so many bad Buccaneer teams, but deserved to be in there at least a handful of times. Still to this day, the best tight end in Bucs history, Jimmy Giles, who caught touchdown passes from Doug Williams back in 1979. 34 touchdowns, most ever by a tight end. Still, I want to say that's third best. Right, you have Mike with the most touchdown receptions, then Chris, then Jimmy. So Jimmy Giles still has a place in Bucs history 4 decades later. Then you got Chris Godwin, number 12, and then Tom Brady, number 11. We kind of talked about Brady, but Godwin, the second best wide receiver of all time. The more years he plays, the more 1,000-yard seasons he stacks up. Matt, there's a chance he moves up that list, but. Let me just pose something to you, Matt. When you see guys like Chris Godwin, like Mike Evans, who's going to be on this list here, we know the guys that have won Super Bowls. There's only a handful left on this team. Then, of course, the legends, and we're going to be reeling off a bunch of guys with Super Bowls, right? Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, John Lynch, Ronde Barber, they're coming, right, on this list. But what happens if like Levante David wins 2? What happens if Mike Evans wins 2? What happens if Chris Godwin wins 2?
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a Herculean feat for this franchise. We already talked about what happens if Baker Mayfield wins 1. There's a chance he vaults ahead of Tom Brady as the best Bucs quarterback of all time. But for some of these players, and there's only a handful of them, Tristan Wirfs is one, Winfield's another, right? That if they win 2 Super Bowls, that's a different stratosphere now in Bucs legend and Bucs lore.
It is, because no one has done it before. Even Jason Light, to say he's a 2-time Super Bowl winning GM. It's never been done before. I think with the Buccaneers, it's certainly, statues need to be built, and immortality, I think, needs to go for a lot of these players as well. I don't know how much it helps, because like when I think of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it's individual success. And obviously, if you're on good teams, you're going to be a successful player and you get that much more of the attention. I think it helps Levante David, especially if you're going to compare Levante to like Luke Kuechly,
right,
Bobby Wagner. And the argument against Levante has always been, well, when Luke Kuechly played, the Panthers were a really good team. They went to the Super Bowl that one year. They didn't win it, but he kept getting all those awards.
Right.
And Bobby Wagner was on the Legion of Boom, a very highly marketed Seahawks team that, of course, won a Super Bowl too. And Levante, even though they won a Super Bowl, it almost felt like too little too late. I think Levante David a ton, but at the same time, I don't think like Mike Evans is already a Hall of Famer. But if the argument then becomes like Mike Evans versus Randy Moss, Mike Evans versus T.O., or any other receivers that are going to start getting in soon.
Right.
I think the 2 Super Bowls benefits Levante David way more than saying, hey, Mike Evans won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that helps him against, like, Randy Moss and T.O. never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They went to Super Bowls, but they never won one. I don't know how much that helps Mike specifically, and ultimately it's a team game anyway. I do think it helps Chris Godwin, though, in terms of his overall importance and pantheon, because, they want to win this year, but who's to say that Godwin wins one and at this point Mike Evans is retired? I don't think we can rule that out either.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And one of the things, too, that I've gotten some feedback on is why Vita Vea ahead of Gerald McCoy? And they're pretty close, right? Vita Vea is 19, Gerald McCoy is 22. I think the door's already been closed on Gerald McCoy's career. He's already retired, right? He can't get another single statistic. Where the arrow is still pointing up for Vita Vea, still very much in his prime at age 30, already has 2 Pro Bowls. And then McCoy had 6 Pro Bowls, but he played on Bucs teams that didn't make the playoffs. Now, that's not his fault because football is the ultimate team sport. But the fact that, like, we can't penalize Gerald McCoy for not playing on playoff teams, but we have to reward Vita Vea for playing on those teams and helping this team win Super Bowls. If you go back to 2020, he broke his leg against the Bears, and Bruce Arians made a deal with him. He says, we're going to get to the Super Bowl, but I need you to do your rehab so you can play in it, right? That was the thing. We're going to get to the postseason, but you got to do your part so you can join the party. And that worked out. And we saw Vita Vea return to action in that NFC Championship game. Didn't even play on rundowns. He played on pass downs and collapsed the pocket and allowed JPP and Shaq
Barrett had a 3-sack game.
Absolutely murder Aaron Rodgers, right? And then he did the same thing in the Super Bowl, pressured Patrick Mahomes to the left, to the right, and was a huge force there. So I think there's more Pro Bowls in Vita Vea's future. He already has the Super Bowl. And again, he's one of those guys, too, that if one more Super Bowl and you're really cementing his legacy in Tampa. And you know what? For Vita Vea, probably not a Hall of Famer, but 2 Super Bowls would probably put him in the Bucs Ring of Honor, man.
Yeah, he's right now. Vita Vea to me is in the Hall of Very Good, and I don't want to. I think Gerald McCoy gets unfairly bashed because the Bucs didn't make the playoffs, and like Gerald McCoy was a really, really good player, and I think many times it's commendable to be a great player on a team that just isn't good, because if you're on a bad team, all the opponents go, okay, we stop that one guy and we're going to win the game. People knew what Gerald McCoy could do, and he still was a really good defensive tackle, one of the best defensive tackles of his time. Of course, the guy that went right before him in the draft, Ndamukong Suh, ended up being the best, and then ends up going to Tampa, and winning a Super Bowl as well. But I think it's tough to compare the stats overall with Gerald McCoy and Vita Vea, because Vita, in my opinion,
2 different positions,
opens up so many things for everybody else, as you just kind of talked about with Shaq Barrett and the 3 sacks against the Packers in the NFC Championship game. But I think you're seeing it even today with the emergence of Kalijah Kancey as well, and what we think is going to happen at outside linebacker today. So it's a little bit of a different comparison with Vita Vea and Gerald McCoy, though I am glad that they are close to each other. So it shows that there's not that wide of a gap. But yeah, I agree. I think Vita Vea, when it's all said and done, could end up being a Bucs Ring of Honor member. And then it's going to come down to, running out of room in Raymond James Stadium to put all these numbers up there.
And some would say Gerald McCoy belongs in the Bucs Ring of Honor. I'm not going to say he doesn't. I would support that if the team did. I don't feel that the 6 Pro Bowls, which are the individual honors, I don't know that that's an automatic entry into the Bucs Ring of Honor. If the team wants him in, that's great. I think James Wilder has more of a case because he's still the all-time leading rusher, right? Gerald McCoy is the 4th leading sacker. Had 9.5 sacks, didn't have a double-digit sack season. I think there's 3 names on this list that should be 4 names really in the Bucs Ring of Honor that aren't. Chris Godwin, I think that's coming in time, right?
Yeah.
2nd best wide receiver of all time. I'd love to see Hardy Nickerson be the next one in. He deserves it. And I think the Shaq Barrett, I think you could make a case there. He has 19.5 sacks. That he broke Warren Sapp's single season sack record. He was the Bucs franchise player when it came to contracts. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler. Some would say he might have been the Bucs MVP in the Super Bowl. And, his career was kind of cut short due to his Achilles injury. He was getting up there in a little bit of age. But for the impact that he had, 2 double-digit sack seasons, one in 2021 and then another one in 2019, and then really just ripped it loose in the postseason of 2020. I think you could make a case for having Shaq Barrett in the Bucs Ring of Honor.
There's an argument to be made. There's no doubt about it. And I also feel like there was times, like sometimes I feel like the Bucs had people go into the Ring of Honor and where it was like, hey, our team's bad, but we'll do the celebration and therefore they're in the Ring of Honor. I'm not saying that like no one is totally unworthy of being in there, but now they're going to run into a situation where you have all these good teams where the criteria is a little bit higher. But if it was this caliber of player 10 years ago, they're automatically in, where now it's like the bar has been raised a little bit more. And it's it's tough for some of the fringe guys. But I think Godwin's certainly in there. Barrett's a very interesting question. He does have the franchise single season record and was important. So that's a really good discussion.
Yeah, it is. And I think Nickerson and Wilder, those are some people that I think should still be in the discussion with the Glazers and all of that. Let's get to our final top 10 here, shall we?
Yeah.
Here we go, folks. Top 10, Simeon Rice at number 10, defensive end, pass rusher, the sack master, the A-Train, fullback Mike Allstott, 6-time Pro Bowler, comes in at number 9. The best offensive lineman, not just in Bucs history, but maybe current day in the NFL. It's an argument to be made for him. Tristan Wirfs, left tackle, number 8. Wirfs is the only player in NFL history to be an All-Pro at 2 different positions. Think about that. In the history of the NFL, no other player has been an All-Pro at 2 different positions. Now you might say, oh, well, it's still offensive tackle. Ask Tristan Wirfs, okay, who actually made the switch. It's a lot more difficult than it looks. It's doing one thing at right tackle for a long time and getting really, really excellent at it, and then being asked to be just as excellent doing the exact mirror opposite, right? So, but he's a freak, and he did it flawlessly. Levante David, the legend, comes in at number 7, 2nd best linebacker of all time. Hall of Fame strong safety John Lynch comes in at number 6. Hall of Fame defensive end Leroy Selman comes in at number 5. Mike Evans, future Hall of Famer, the best offensive weapon in Bucs history, comes in at number 4. Rondé Barber, number 3. Fantastic playmaker, top interceptor, best defensive back in franchise history. Number 2, the most decorated Buccaneer of all time, Derek Brooks, best linebacker for sure. And number 1, the heartbeat of the Bucs Super Bowl victory in 2002 and the rise to prominence of the Buccaneers during the Tony Dungy, Monty Kiffin years. Warren Sapp, number 1. Hall of Famer, regarded as one of the top 5 defensive tackles of all time. So that's our list there. The funny thing is, for years, I always had Derek Brooks ahead of Warren Sapp. And you know who changed my mind? The late, great Mark Cook. Yeah, the Seminole. And he said, all right, he says, both Sapp and Brooks are phenomenal players, right? Brooks played a little bit longer, made more Pro Bowls, right? But he said, you have the number 1 pick, and you have a chance to choose Warren Sapp or Derek Brooks to be on your team. Who are you picking? And I'm like, whoa. And he said, yeah, that's where it gets at, because great defensive tackles are hard to find. Elite defensive tackles are rare. They're unicorns. You can find linebackers, and I'm not taking anything away from Levante David or Shelton Quarles. It's certainly not Derek Brooks. But it all starts up front. When you are a defensive tackle, you have a chance to to stop the running game before it gets started. You have a chance to pressure the quarterback. You were the closest defensive player to the quarterback. And this is a guy that had 77 sacks, just a sack and a half short of Leroy Selman's all-time Bucs franchise record. And then you throw in the fact that he had 16 and a half sacks. He was an NFL Defensive Player in 1999. Brooks won that award in 2002 during the Bucs Super Bowl run. Selman also won it in 1979. But what keeps Selman outside and looking in at number 5 is the fact that the top 4 guys, Sapp, Brooks, Barber, and Evans, all have Super Bowl rings.
Yeah. And you got to have offense in there at some point.
And you have to have offense in there at some point. And I will say this, Rondé Barber is a unicorn. He has an NFL record that nobody else has, right? With 47 interceptions and 25 sacks. He is, and I think 13 or 14 defensive scores, or I should say non-offensive touchdowns. He is up there with only Rod Woodson and Charles Woodson in NFL history to having that many defensive touchdowns. And you throw in the fact he was essentially the prototype nickel corner, where he played outside corner on first and second down, then went inside and sacked quarterbacks and had interceptions from the slot on third downs. And the longevity of his career, nobody played longer in Buccaneer history in red and pewter than Rondé Barber. There is a case to be made, Matt, and I love Rondé. He's my favorite Buccaneer of all time. There's a case to be made if Mike Evans continues with the 1,000-yard seasons, and he has a chance to break Jerry Rice's record this year with 12 consecutive years. There's a chance that Evans, I think, in time, with maybe 3 or 4 more excellent seasons, you can make an argument he could pass Rondé Barber and move into number 3, especially if he wins another Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, I think if he breaks Jerry Rice's record, maybe somehow finds a way to finally get like a first-team All-Pro nomination. I know it's going to be very difficult. There's a lot of great wide receivers in this league, and he's only getting older. But yeah, I think Mike could eventually get to 3, maybe even get all the way to 2 or 1 if he wins another Super Bowl and gets a couple of more individual accolades. But I think the top 4, in whatever order you want to have it, you got your Mount Rushmore right there. And I agree with everything you said about, like, Leroy Selman is so important to the history of the Buccaneers. And again, we're talking about team awards and things like that, but you got to have all Super Bowl winners.
Right.
So here's the thing. And again, it's all subjective. It's all based on opinion. That's why you have these debates. When you look at the top 50 Bucs of all time, top 50 Bucs, to me, I think it's so important. Like Sapp did eventually play for the Raiders. He didn't only spend his career with the Bucs.
Yep.
Derek Brooks was with the Bucs. He was Bucs true. And as you said, most decorated Buck of all time. So I would probably flip-flop Brooks and Sapp just because Brooks only played with the Bucs. I think that's important for Rondé Barber and especially for Mike Evans. He only played with Tampa Bay. It's very much splitting hairs and stuff like that. And I totally see how it could go the other way too. But I think this is a fantastic top 10 list specifically. I think everybody is really in their right spots. And, a couple of guys like Tristan Wirfs could maybe even eventually move up.
There might be an argument. Who's the better offensive player, Mike Evans or Tristan Wirfs in time? I mean, who knows what's going to happen? If Tristan Wirfs ends up playing 13, 14 years and gets 10 Pro Bowl berths, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy to think. But right now you've got 4 Hall of Famers, right? Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, Rondé Barber. You've got Leroy Selman. Mike Evans will be a Hall of Famer, right? And you have John Lynch, so you have 5. So Mike Evans would make 6. Tristan Wirfs would make 7. Let's hope and pray Levante David gets in. That could be 8. Simeon Rice, I think if there is justice in this world, he gets in 122 career sacks, 69 and a half in Tampa. But he has 122 career sacks. He's the only player, I want to say, with 120 sacks or more, or maybe that number is 100, that is not in the Hall of Fame. So Sackmaster deserves to be in there. I'm glad he's getting in the Bucs Ring of Honor this year against the Cardinals. That's going to be a fun game to watch and root for. But yeah, I mean, he's he deserves to be in too. So it's great that this franchise, and by the time it turned 50, has a pair of Super Bowl championships. The Panthers have been to 2. They're 0-2, Matt.
Right.
The Falcons have been to 2. They're 0-2. The Saints 1-1. So the Buccaneers rule this division. And certainly they're ruling it in present day with 4 straight NFC South championships. So it's fun to listen. 30 years ago when I started in 1995, that was the year that this team drafted Warren Sapp, drafted Derek Brooks in the first round, and the year that Leroy Selman went into the Hall of Fame as the Bucs' first inductee. So a lot's happened in the past 30 years. I've been blessed to cover the greatness that I've been able to witness, and certainly you have as well in your years at Pewter Report, Matt. These are some cherished times in Tampa Bay right now.
Yeah, it's going to be obviously we want to see the Bucs win on the field, but it's going to be a special year just based on celebrating 50 years of Tampa Bay Buccaneers football. So I'm excited for all the glitz and glamour that's going to come with it. I'm sure, obviously, the Bucs coming out with their own top 50 list. We talked about throwback uniforms and the history they're going to continue to honor, week in and week out. I think is going to be a lot of fun. We also want to give a shout out to all of our Pewter Platinum member. We got a couple of super chats to get to as well, but let's start off with the Platinum members. Thank you to Scott Federico, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Hezo 813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zap Brannigan, RP89, Eric McMillan, Connor Forreals, Kevin Thomas, Zach Jarvis, Leighton Carter, The Guy is Gifted, Brandon Riley, Alec Bickler, and Nick Dubuque. Thank you all so much for being Pewter Platinum members. We greatly appreciate your support.
Great turnout for roll call today, too.
We did. Let's give some shout outs to Rolf Steinbauer, watching from Stanley, Idaho. Scott Valdez, right in our backyard of Tampa, Florida. Utah Bucknut says, move to Las Vegas. So shout out watching from Vegas. This one I put on the screen, Desmond Watson worshiper, watching from Tampa, Florida. I hope you're a mainstay in this comment, in this Desmond Watson worshiper. I'm hoping to see this name pop up a lot more. And Nidmatic, hello from Serbia. So we got some international fans as well. Thank you all for your support. Thanks for another fun roll call today. Also, on Mondays, we like to give shout outs to our premier members as well. We'll let that go across the screen there. And let's answer these super chats, starting with Coulter Castilleja. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, speaking of top Bucs, can Pewter Report put some pressure on Yaya to continue collabs with Simeon Rice? Bucs YouTube video was awesome. I just hope it doesn't stop there.
Yeah, for sure. I watched that video the other day. I was actually texting Yaya about it, and it was pretty cool. And I told Yaya, I said, man, you've got to get in Sim's pocket and just stay there. I mean, that guy's got so much knowledge to impart. It was great seeing him kind of get schooled up a little bit by Sim, who is just still to this day, out of the 30 years I've covered this team, the best athlete I've ever covered. I mean, he would practice, and then he would spend about an hour after practice continuing to practice by himself, and then he would have some offensive tackles come out where he would get more work one-on-one. Then he would bring out some of the younger defensive tackles, some of the guys like Ellis Wims, and guys like that, and show them the ropes and kind of school them up, the backup defensive lineman. Just a phenomenal player. The Energizer Bunny, he never ran out of juice. Love Sim, and it was great to see that with Yaya, because I think Yaya wants to be great. And if you want to be great, pay attention to what 97 did. Special guy, special player.
You can feel it and you can sense it with Yaya for sure. So I'm glad they got to link up. By the way, I wanted to give a shout out to Derek Pilger as well. I said this in the beginning of the show, enjoying a 4 a.m. breakfast with Pewter Report. So you're somewhere international with a different time zone. Thanks for starting your day with Pewter Report and the Pewter Report podcast. 2 more super chats from David Van Dunn. Thanks for the $9.99 super chat. Says, Mike Evans is the greatest Buc in franchise history. Being the greatest in a franchise is so much more than being a great player. Mike has been a staple of this city and team for the past 13 years.
Really hard to argue different positions against different positions, different times against different times, and all that. And I love Mike. the wide receiver position has certainly gained prominence, right? The wide receivers weren't as important in the 1990s as they are now. Like if you don't have an elite wide receiver, your offense probably isn't going. This has become a passing league, so I get it. It's difficult. Is Mike one of the top 5 wide receivers of all time? I don't think you can say that. I think he's certainly in the top 10. You can make that argument. Like you could make that argument. You could find 10 other receivers that you might think are better than Mike. Warren Sapp was one of the top 5 defensive tackles of all time, right? I mean, that's just a fact. There's Aaron Donald, Joe Green, Randall McDaniel. I forget the other guys that are typically in the mix, but I mean, he's there. He is that iconic of a player. And so that's why he is, in the top spot for us right there. Listen, like Matt said, that's the Mount Rushmore. If you're on Mount Rushmore, it doesn't matter really if you're 1 or 4, you're there. And I think that's the cool thing about Mike is he is there with what he's done so far. Only a matter of time before he gets that gold jacket.
Yeah, and we'll see. His career's not done.
That's right.
We'll see what happens this year. We'll see if he wants to continue to keep playing.
Yeah.
Can certainly add to it. David Van Dunn with another super chat. Thank you for this $1.99. Says, Ryan Succop better than Chase all time, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about that. If Chase McLaughlin has another great season in Tampa Bay, then I think he has a chance to vault Ryan Succop. We're going to give Succop his due right now because he helped win this team a Super Bowl, set the franchise single scoring record. That's important. So, but they're close. They're pretty close right there. We're getting close to 20,000 subscribers. We're literally about 300 change away. So if you have the opportunity, and you do, go over to Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. It's free. And then become one of the 20,000 subscribers we have. It's going to happen during training camp. We can't wait. And we're super excited about that. Thank you so much for your support for this channel, for watching and listening to our podcast. It means the world to us. This is my favorite hour of the day. I know it is for Matt too. We love being on the show with you guys, your interactions, your comments. We love the interaction. We're getting ready for training camp. It's going to be grueling. It's going to be fun. We're looking forward to bringing you guys the coverage. If there's any really breaking news, and we're not going to say things like injuries, so we're going to knock on wood and not say that, but like if there's a contract extension, something positive, right? For like Luke Edeke or something, we'll do some emergency podcast live from One Buccaneer Place during training camp. So always make sure you have your notifications turned on, because that lets you know whenever we go live with the Pewter Pulse video, Matt's Pewter Picks and Props during football season, if you're into sports wagering, and of course our Pewter Report podcast as well. We talked about the subscribers that we have and the channel members. You have the opportunity to help us become a channel member. We're going to Pittsburgh. Thanks to you guys. You helped fund our trip. We're going to send Matt and Adam to Pittsburgh for the joint practice between the Bucs and the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers versus Baker Mayfield later in August. And it's the perfect way that you can get some cool things for yourself, like loyalty badges and emojis whenever you comment in the chat or in the comments below our videos. $3.99, $6.99, $9.99, $24.99 are the membership levels. To become a Pewter Report TV channel member, go to Pewter Report TV, hit the join button. That will give you the options here. Find the one that suits your needs and your budget the best, and we greatly appreciate that. One special note, we had a fantastic time with our Pewter Platinum members in Tampa at Walk-Ons back in June. We had Assistant General Manager Mike Greenberg was there and answered a bunch of questions, took pictures, signed autographs. Zion McCollum stopped by, took pictures, signed autographs for all of our Pewter Platinum members that attended. So that's an exclusive perk that you get when you're a Pewter Platinum member at $24.99 a month. We will not have, because there's a practice on Friday, we will not have a Pewter Insider video this Friday, but we'll have those throughout training camp.
Yeah, so please consider being a Pewter Platinum member. And also, if you're not already doing so, please follow us on our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this video. Tell us who are your top 50 greatest Bucs of all time. Or if you want, do 50, do 10. Give us a top 5, however you feel. Let us know in the comments. And that's going to do it for today's show. Reminder, No show tomorrow, but we will be back on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We will see you on Wednesday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.